Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Black Notebook. I'm your host, Antonio, and this is a little segment that I think I'll start doing after a lot of our uh, episodes to address a few incidents that did happen. If you watched our last episode, I believe it was either the fourth or the fifth episode. At the end of the episode, there was a massive blow up in which I uh, got angry enough that I kicked everyone out, and I would like to address that. In a way, I would like to apologize to both of my host and my co host and to the audience for exploding the way that I did. It was a moment of anger that should not have happened, but sometimes I do believe that the conversations, even between friends, do get a little too heated and the responses aren't as good as they should be. I don't think that this is a fair way to have a apology or to have a segment, but it's probably the best way I can do it at the moment. And the only way to make it fair is I will offer this opportunity to everyone else as well. So I'm going to explain or at least tell the point of view that I am coming across in my position of this matter. The segment in question was probably the fourth hour or so in which we were talking about the ideals of free speech. In Alpha's point of view, he believes that Democrats, or at least he assumed that Democrats are not allowing the idea of free speech to exist because they won't allow you to say slurs. Now, that in itself, in my opinion, is ridiculous. You shouldn't be able to go around calling people whatever slur you want, but you can do that. You can do it right now. The thing that they are talking about that they won't have a problem with is not free speech. They have a problem with consequence free speech. Because right now, if a white person goes around and calls someone a slur, they can be brought up on charges. They aren't often brought up on charges, but they can. What these people want, in my opinion, is to go back to a time in which conservatives were able to say whatever slur they want to whoever they want, and there was no blowback. And that in itself is what they consider to be free speech. The idea that you have freedom of speech is spurious at most, laughable at best, because you cannot just go to a judge and threaten them, or you can just say that was my freedom of speech. You cannot openly conduct a conspiracy to commit a crime or an act of a crime and say that was my free speech. That's just not how that works. You can't go to a police officer and threaten them or to a judge and threaten them and then yell, that's my freedom of speech. The problem is that people would love to always put a black face on a white policy. And that is something that I've always despised. All of these people who are supposedly free speech advocates, they don't ever seem to be around whenever someone's saying something they don't like. Take, for instance, how the current Trump administration is destroying everything that has to do with the actual terms of free speech. Because if you read the constitutional right of free speech, it is the right to redress the government of a grievance. And the Trump administration is currently black bagging and deporting anyone who they believe is having dissent. If you are currently angry at Elon Musk and saying stuff about Tesla, you could be deported. If you are currently saying something about the current ongoing genocide that's going on in Gaza, you can and will be deported. If you have anything to say that is politically un unworthy of the current political class, you can and will be black bagged and deported. This is the kind of free speech that they want. They want to be able to say and do whatever they want to others, but they don't want you to address them in any way. The problem is that the idea that people have of a lot of rights that we have come from black bodies that were thrown into the grinder to get you these so-called rights. What do they think the idea of free speech is? What do they think the idea of freedom is? I, without a doubt, am a very, very far leftist. I am a radical. I am a person who believes in radical ideas because I cannot withstand the current onslaught of the world as it is now, because we're all slowly going and walking into our own deaths due to it. And I find that to be wholly, wholly insane. I don't really understand the whole metric myself. I just don't. I do not understand why people have this undergirding feeling or desire to harm another human. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And the only way that I feel that we can do anything about it is if we harm those individuals first. The idea, in my opinion, that I'm going to, as a black man, help a white person be able to harm other black people is spurious. It's insane. I do not intend to ever allow that to happen. That's just a crazy way to look at the world, in my point of view. The people who got you these rights, you are willing to help the people who fought against you having those rights to get that power again. And there will be no restoring of these rights ever. It is literally going to be a, sorry, it's a little bit early. Uh, what was I saying? Oh, yes. You will not get those rights back. It is just not the way that it goes. I have always thought it was insane that the Caucasian people in the world are constantly asking the world to give them things that are making life harder for other individuals. Take, for instance, all of these current trends of Trump supporters or Trump adjacent people talking about how they didn't vote for X. They didn't think he'd do this. They didn't think he'd do that. They thought it was all bluster. They thought it was all talk. And now that he is in power and is currently implementing all of these ideals that are becoming more and more problematic, that is what we're going to get. We're going to get people who are going to be saying they didn't think it would be this bad after it already happened. I just do not understand the concept of allowing a person to even get to a point where they can have to say stuff like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was going to be this bad. I don't understand that mindset. I do not understand that ideology. I just don't. In my opinion, you can't stab a person and then say, oh, I didn't know you were going to bleed that much. I'm sorry. That doesn't stop the idea that you've now stabbed me and I am dying. Like, I don't understand the concept of not understanding that. And the problem is, this entire podcast is black people. Now, some people do not believe that they're black. They believe that there's something else. Because when the term black comes about, it does actually mean African American. It doesn't actually mean African. It doesn't actually mean Jamaican. It doesn't actually mean Haitian. It doesn't actually mean anything other than African American, because that's what the terminology was used for. Now, are we all black people? Yes. And in a way, yes, so my co-host is correct that they aren't exactly what the world would consider black by the phonetics of being black. But because their skin is not white, it must be black. That's the way that this works. We base our entire politics not off of what a world should be, but what the world is. And the strangest thing is, and it will probably always be strange, is that there are plenty of black people who are uneducated enough to understand what it is that they are signing up for. And it really is devastating because a lot of these people do believe that what they're doing and saying is right. But the interesting thing is that I always say is you didn't fight to get us these rights, but you're really going to fight to allow them to be taken away. If we allow white people to do the things that they are doing, it is going to lead to an utter devastation of us as a people, as us as a race, of us as a ideology. It's just going to disappear because the first thing they're going to do is put us back in the places that they believe we belong. There is nothing in this world that agitates me more than a white person using black aesthetics, using black phonology, using black slang to tell black people how they don't have a culture, how they don't have a position, how they don't have a placement. That in itself is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. You do not hear anyone in the world talking like, somebody in Ireland, or is talking like someone in China, or talking like someone in Europe. They all seem to, for some reason, talk like a black person in the South, or talk like a black person in the West of America, or talk like a black person in the East of America. And that's where all of these things come from. And it really is a derogatory feeling, at least for me, to have this happen. And the fact that we have people in this world who are enjoying the rights that my ancestors have given them while denigrating me and my people is wild to me. And that in itself is something I cannot handle. And that is where the argument came from, to have another black person telling me a white policy and just saying, oh, it's about being able to say the word retard. And my response of, you can say the word. What is the problem? I don't understand. It's those type of people who are like the Candace Owens of the world, the Kanyes of the world, all of these, the Jason Whitlocks of the world, who are going to march us right back into the machine because they're trying to pander to a white audience, or they're believing whatever it is that white people say. That in itself is just nonsensical to me, because in the end, you also are black. It is the same situation that we have a clear cut evidence that they will use you and then they will destroy you. Take, for instance, what happened to the Cuban Americans in the Trump administration. They're now crying out for redress from the government because they thought they were going to harm someone else. But the moment they found out it was going to harm them, all of a sudden they're now crying out, we didn't vote for this. Help us, help us, help us. But there's no help coming, because all of these people are living the exact life of a poem that was written after the Nazi Holocaust. The famous poem of, first they came for dot dot dot, and I said nothing, and then they came for dot dot dot, and I said nothing, and then they came for me, and there was no one left to stand for me. And that's the situation that we have to deal with at this moment. And that in itself is what I am most upset about. Because if we ever get into a situation like that, who's going to stand up for us? We already have the rights we have, as tenable as they are right now. as strained as they are right now, we don't need people who aren't. I don't know. We just don't need people who did not put any skin in the game to take the skin out. That in itself is what I believe. And that is where my anger comes from. Because how can a black person who did not stand up for you to have these rights now turn around and try to help take these rights away? And that's what's been happening. The funniest thing is everything that we fought for, we fight for everyone to get so that we can all enjoy them. And yet it's always someone of color who is used to tear it down. If you then go back in how they talked about we need to get rid of DEI, 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 and all of a sudden DEI means black people. We need to get rid of CRT, CRT, CRT so that we can protect the white sensibilities of white children. So that literally means you must destroy the sensibilities of black children. That's insane. How come it is that the politics of the conservative right is the destruction of another person, and yet the politics of a progressive left is to give you more rights, to give you more freedom? It is insane to me that these people do not seem to understand that when a white person says X, they don't mean X. They mean Y. And that Y means X plus Y. And yet, for some reason, when a black person says you should have the rights to have a affordable home, you should have the right to health care, you should have the right to a better life, they don't believe that. And I don't understand how it is that a person can be so brainwashed that they can't see that. I mean, we are currently watching what happens when you, as a person of color, advocate for white policies. I mean, it's insane. It's like white Christian nationalist policies are going to be the death of you, and yet we are all trying to march to that tune. We're all being forced. We're off the edge of a cliff because we're all trying to march with, the same people who did Charlottesville. If they cared so much about free speech as my co-host says they do, then why the hell ain't they saying anything about all these schools that's being shut down? Why aren't they saying anything about all these people being black bagged and deported? And they're just saying, Israel shouldn't be able to blow up children. And they're addressing the government, the very embodiment of the Constitution. And it's insane that we're trying to argue over if a white person can use a slur or not. And that's all it is. They just want to be able to use a slur because they can say whatever they want, and they really do. In fact, the ones who do use slurs, they tend to make a lot more money because they're going to trade in their social capital for financial capital. And the idea that we as black people are going to help them do it is insane to me. And that's where my anger comes from. I am not going to help anyone tear down my people. It's just not going to happen. I am not going to help anyone destroy the legacy that we left in this country. It's just not going to happen. And the fact that there are people out there willing to do that is extremely sad to me. And that's where my anger comes from. And that's where my dissent comes from. And that's my redress. That's it. All right, people. See you later. I'm not sure how the remaining podcast is going to be. If we're going to continue on with the current format that we have, I'm okay with either one. I'm okay with the format as we have with our three hosts. I don't. We may move down to two hosts. We may move to one host. I don't know. I'm not going to be the one to make those decisions. Um, this is an all black cast, So I would like to keep it that way. But if it does become something else, we do have other members who can pick up the slack. I mean, we there are quite a few people who are uh, interested in being a part of this experience. I don't know why, but they are. So I don't want to put any pressure on anyone that they have to do X, Y, or Z. Uh, the whole purpose is really to get out the feelings of the vast majority of the community. Um, but I'm not going to be the one to determine that because, in my opinion, I'm okay with the system the way that it is, even if we have arguments that end up in blowups, because these arguments are important and we must continue to preserve these conversations. Hopefully, everything will go back to the way it was. But if not, um, the original cast and crew will definitely uh, be put into the legacy of this program. And hopefully everything will work out. But I've seen too many times where arguments of this caliber have become situational and it never does work out. So I'm just preparing everyone for that actual eventuality if it does come about. I would hope that it wouldn't, but if it does, we'll somehow figure it out. I mean, we still have other crew members available, and we do have other people who are interested in being on the podcast, bringing in their viewpoints as well. So this is probably the longest apology I've ever actually done, and a little explanation, I guess. But this is the best I can do at this moment. And I feel like it's heartfelt and it's coming from a good place. And hopefully everything will work out. Thank you and see you next time.